that they brought in being the lead pieces to your team. You don't have Iggy. It's just such a huge change. And then you go and lose Steph because of a broken hand. I think it's game over for this season. I mean, this is a lost season now when we're 4 games into the NBA, 2019-2020. So unfortunately for the Warriors fan base, Justin, I don't know that there's any other way to say it other than this is a lost season and there's not going to be a whole lot to cheer about.
What are your thoughts on this team selling off some parts and setting it back up to make a run next year, getting some draft picks, the pick that they traded in that deal to get the sign and trade to send KD to the Nets, get back Russell. They sent the first round pick over, but it's protected 1 through 20. And it looks like they're going to keep that pick. So what do you think about this team making a move, maybe trading a D'Angelo Russell, trying to get some pieces, maybe some picks back, take some expiring deals, and just kind of blowing this thing up for the year, not killing Steph and Draymond and just making another run at it starting next year?
Yeah, if there was any team and any logical reason to do this, it would be now. It would be now because Thompson is a great player, but he's not going to play all year. You already knew that. Steph Curry is a great player, and now he's going to miss probably a large portion of the year, at least a large portion of the first half of the year. You'll be so far behind the 8 ball at that point, especially with so many of these other teams getting better. I do feel like the move to get Russell, as we talked about a couple months ago, was a stopgap. It was, well, we know that Klay's out with the ACL. We know Durant's gone. We know Iggy's gone. We have to have an identity for this team. So we've got Curry. We've got Draymond. Let's bring in a big piece like Russell, see how this all works out. Maybe we can sneak into the playoffs. Now that's not going to happen. And I don't know that Russell really was the greatest fit for this team anyway. So maybe he's a piece now that he's not just going to be a long-term fit for the Warriors. He's going to be a building block that they can use to leverage to get assets back. I think it's completely reasonable because if there's any year to do it, it would be this year. You have to know now if you're Meyer and you're the team, Kerr already knows it. He's already said in his press conference, which I thought was, I don't know. I thought that was kind of crazy after game 2 where he was talking about, get used to it. This is the new normal. Like, how negative of a statement is that after 2 games into the season for a coach to put his team down like that? So they clearly know that they're terrible. And why not just blow it up at this point? Hey, you had a great run. This is Golden State. I mean, what did Golden State have to cheer about before the last 5 years since Chris Mullin? Justin, the time is now to go ahead and just say, all right, let's invest in the future again and build this back up. I mean, Curry's 31 years old. So this is a rough spot it's really surprising for a team that has had the success that they've had. I mean, the difference between this year and the last 5 years, like I said, shell shock is going to be a term going around the crowd because it's going to look so different that I don't know if they're really ready for it.
I don't think this should be unexpected. This team seemed to be a fringe team to even make the playoffs. And then it was, if Klay comes back, then they could be frisky. And look, when you have such a big part of your team, a big part of your cap that's tied up and not playing, and then you can't go out and get anyone to replace him, and you're basically trying to fill your roster out with players that bad teams don't want, the Kings don't want, the Suns don't want. That's not a great recipe to continue to have success. So we knew they were going to be bad on the defensive side. A lot of the Russell deal, I think, was more of, okay, we've got this cap space that we could keep KD. If we just let him walk, we lose that because the NBA rules are so weird about you can overstep the cap and into the luxury tax and all that. But it's different when you have your own guys and how long they've been in the league. So they had that money sort of set aside. So they were able to bring Russell in and just get a piece that they probably wouldn't have gotten anything close to it if KD just walks into the Nets and they aren't able to get Russell to agree to come there and sign his deal. So you're right. That move was totally just to get an asset. The talk of all along has been just see how it goes. And then you have the trade piece. Russell's already talked about wanting to play with Karl Anthony Towns and going to Minnesota. So you've got teams that were already interested in Russell, like a T-Wolves. Well, maybe there's a trade to be made there. You've got Teague. He's got an expiring deal. Maybe there's a third team you get involved, and somehow the Warriors maybe get 1 or 2 young guys, get some picks. They'll have their own pick. And next year, you just come back and try to make another run at it. These guys aren't that old where it's unthinkable that they couldn't make another title run, but you'll have a healthy Clay. Steph won't have a lot of mileage on him. You just kind of take care of Draymond through the year, and you hope your pick ends up to give yourself a chance for a top 5 pick. And maybe you can pick up another top 10 pick along the way with the Russell deal and get some guys that are young, that aren't expensive, that can build your depth back out. And that's the thing that this team has lacked, because they could just overwhelm teams with their starting 5. When you got into those playoff runs, you started to see some of the cracks in the armor where if one of those guys had to sit out, you're bringing somebody in that's a borderline G League player, or at the very tail end of a very long career where the performance is very inconsistent because you're asking someone in their early to mid 30s to go out and do extraordinary thing versus 20-year-olds and mid 20s guys. So that's where this team's problem is, Eric. But I agree. For them, I think they really need to look at, okay, let's see how this shakes out over the next couple of weeks here. Which one of these teams is going to, can the T-Wolves keep making their run? They're sitting at 3-1. Do they want to just make a big push? Is there somebody else out there that could use a scoring guard that's got something that could benefit the Warriors? Which teams are falling apart? You've got the Kings that are a mess already this year at 0-5. So I think for them, just kind of see how this shakes out over the next 2 weeks or so and then pull the plug on it. And I really think that's the key. They're not going to make the playoffs. So reload for next year, because it's almost like free agency. You're going to get Klay Thompson back, and then who knows what you could get in the draft with the advantage they're going to be, because they're not going to win the Western Conference, Eric. We've seen that. The Western Conference is loaded. You've got the Clippers loaded up. The Lakers have looked good so far. I think for them, it's going to be, can they stay healthy? The Jazz are 4-1. The Mavericks, Porzingis and Doncic look like just the chemistry is there. That's a great match. Harden and Westbrook haven't killed each other yet. So, and then on the Eastern Conference, we've talked about it's pretty much going to be a Sixers Bucks as long as they stay healthy. So which teams have kind of jumped out to you early in this season?
Ooh, I like the fact that, and look, I mean, let's keep all politics.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were going to go LeBron right off the get-go here.
Let's keep politics out of it. I like the fact that LeBron, from a basketball standpoint, is getting things figured out with AD. Game 1 actually made me really nervous because the third and fourth quarter against that opening night game against the Clippers was abominable. And it, to me, reminded me of the first year in Miami where LeBron's like, I don't know if I'm supposed to distribute. I don't know if I'm supposed to score. I don't know what. So he was highly ineffective in the fourth quarter, and they ended up giving up the lead and losing that game to the Clippers. But after that, the last 3 games, those two guys are on a roll. And let's keep in mind, they don't even have Kuzma on the floor right now. So I think the guys that they need to have step up, like McGee and even Dwight Howard, have played their roles. I mean, Danny Green had a phenomenal shooting night one night. They have pieces there that seem to be enough. And like you said, if they all stay healthy, because they're not a particularly deep team, but if LeBron and AD can dominate the way they've dominated the past week, they're a scary, scary team. And I don't think that there's too many teams that would be able to match that firepower come deep into the playoffs. Now, that's what we see right now. It's hard to say if you do get some of these trades. I mean, because there's certainly really good teams in the Western Conference. I mean, you pointed it out with Dallas, that they're a scary team, in Minnesota. Utah even could be scary just if they get it all put together. We know they've been on the rise for the past couple years. So I'm not sold on Houston. I think you're going to have nights, like here this week where Harden has 59, and you're going to have other nights where he shoots 3 of 20 from behind the arc. I mean, that's just how they're going to play. But the West has a lot of strong teams. Now, Justin, I got to flip that, because the other team, thankfully, that I'm really excited about is the Philadelphia 76ers, who we both root for. At 4-0, it's not just been 4-0, Justin. It's been a dominant 4-0. So to me, I am the most excited out of the entire league about our Sixers and what I've seen, because we talked last year that one of the biggest things holding them back is, can Embiid be the Embiid of 20 points, 10 rebounds? That's the Embiid they need, but they also need it to be partnered with a Ben Simmons that can consistently put up 15 or more points a night. Well, Ben's looked pretty good so far this year. Tobias Harris is shooting well. Embiid looks solid. And this team just looks dominant if they can keep all their pieces together. So I'm most excited about the Sixers, and I'm wondering what your feeling is on them, because I know we both root for them.
Well, I think just from before last night, I liked what I've seen from this team, from the fact that they're kind of a quirky lineup with Horford and Embiid. They've gotten better on the defensive side. They're finding ways to win games, even with Embiid sitting out. They were able to go into Atlanta and get a win. Look, the thing that has always crept up that we've talked kind of offline as Sixer fans of, okay, does Embiid, is there too much distraction? Is there too much stuff that with all the trash talking and all the antics, is it too much? Or does this play into this guy's game where he actually uses this like Michael Jordan used to kind of make stuff up and motivate himself and self-motivate himself to just want to go out and crush everyone he played against? And I think, Eric, I'm starting to lean towards the latter, that Embiid just uses this stuff to motivate himself, and he's able to get in guys' heads. The unhealthy thing is you don't want a guy that's injury prone and has back problems kind of tussling with another 7-footer. Like that would be my biggest concern there. And he gets himself thrown out of the game. Now, look, they were up 20 points. So maybe not like it's a crunch time in a game 7 or something like that. But my only fear is if he's going to do that, he's got to figure out a way to control it, to not get himself thrown out of games, because then he's not doing good for anyone, because he's going to see good players in games that they're going to have to win, or playoff rounds where, yeah, he can try to get in their head. But if they start swinging on him and he starts trying to protect himself and he's throwing down too, he's going to get ejected from the game. And then what happens to this team? So that's my big concern with him is, Eric, I'm always concerned that he's got to know where to draw the line to not get himself thrown out of these games.
Yes, he has to be able to control that emotion. The trouble with trash talking is the fact that if you can dish it out but you can't take it, then you're going to have a problem. And obviously, Karl Anthony Towns and him had a interesting couple of moments the other night. My favorite part of that is you sent me a video on Twitter was Ben Simmons' chokehold, during the end of that little tussle there. But yeah, I mean,
time watching the UFC or WWE, he's got like the naked reverse chokehold, tapping Karl Anthony out.
Going all Ken Shamrock on Karl Anthony Towns. I was surprised he didn't get thrown out for that, actually. But either way, like you said, they were up by 20. They were dominating this game. But can you control that? Can you control if you're being trash talked to in the playoffs? Can you control your emotions so that you're still on the court for your team? We'll find out as we get through the year here, but I'm not going to deny a guy some firepower. If he's got that in his belly and that's what motivates him and it works for him, but he's going to go out and perform really well, then I'll take it, because I'd rather try to get a guy to settle down a little bit than to have guys on my roster that I can't seem to figure out how to motivate them.
I like the fire that's there too. I think when you saw post game, all of the kind of extracurricular Instagram and Twitter stuff going on, do you feel like that stuff is a distraction to him, or do you feel like he uses that to motivate himself for the next game?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think it could go either way. And without knowing him and his psyche and his personality, I don't know. Look, we're seeing it with AB right now. I mean, all of the post-game antics on social media is a dangerous game to play. And I think what it does is it tries to either pump you up or it tries to sway the court of public opinion to your side one way or the other in some of these little, cat fights. And I use that, yes, pun intended, with Karl Anthony Towns. You see it with AB, you see it with other guys where you're spreading a message and trying to get it to be what you want it to be. I'm with you. I think it's all in how he uses it. Is it used for the good of the team because it leads to wins? Or is it used to where 50-50, you don't know if he's going to make it through the game without being ejected or not because of all of this distractive stuff going on with social media? It's yet to be seen. But, speaking of throwing down post game, Justin, I don't think I've ever seen something quite as egregious as what we saw after the NASCAR race at Martinsville. And you and I were texting right away that this has to be handled. And I have a feeling I know what you're going to think on it, is that NASCAR didn't handle this correctly at all. there was a crew member for the Penske team